Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Heart Based Business Show with your host, Dr. Shirlene Reeves. We have a really great show planned for you today, especially if you are a speaker or you aspire to be a speaker. Because I think that it's a dream of so many entrepreneurs, but they have no idea how to jump into that arena. And I get that. We don't even know where to begin. And that's what happened to me when I first started too, which is why I invited the guest that we have today, because she's got some great insights to share with you. And, do we need a book? Do we not need a book? How do we do a speaker sheet? What's the process? She's going to give us all those great tips today. So you're going to learn how to get booked as a speaker in today's crazy world. And just know that it's a time-consuming process, but it's also very, very rewarding because you get to give your expertise to others so that they can have a better life. So we'll be sharing these tips. We'll be giving you suggestions so that you don't have to struggle in the future. So let's get started right away. And welcome back. We are going to be talking to an entrepreneur who's been in business for 15 years. You think she knows her stuff? Yeah, I think so. She's a publisher of Pageant Platform Magazine and the host of Pageant Platform Podcast. We're going to have to talk to her about that. Carrie is our guest as a sought-after speaker on topics such as leveraging your publicity to close more deals. She talks about bodies don't die, body language basics, the significance of color in your wardrobe, which is really important, even when you're on a show like this, and the psychology behind it. And she has the network game, making networking work for your business, and follow-up tips for success that make you money. Let's welcome Carrie Heaps to the show right now. Welcome, Carrie. I'm so glad you're with us.
I'm so glad to be here with you, Shirlene. Thank you for having me on your program today.
You're certainly welcome. And I brought you on because you are so knowledgeable around the speaking genre. And I want to know what it means, pageant platform. Would you explain that?
Certainly. So, Pageant Platform Magazine and Pageant Platform Podcast is a really great resource for young girls and women in the pageant industry who are looking at building their platform, kind of the whole reason they're competing. So, it could be some women, their platform is autism, raising awareness for autism, or it could be women who are raising awareness for self-defense, being able to take care of yourself. So it's a great way to take your platform. Pageantry does have a shelf life. So once you exit the pageant industry, it's all about taking your platform and making a career out of it, or creating your own nonprofit, or creating your own business.
Which jumps right into the speaking, right?
Exactly. Speaking, writing.
Go ahead.
Speaking, writing, training. There's a lot of different opportunities. It really just depends on how a contestant would want to move forward.
So when you are, say, a pageant participant has won and they want to go out and get speaking gigs, and I assume it's the same with entrepreneurs, what is their first best step?
A first best step for anyone, whether it's a pageant contestant, someone who is brand new to speaking, that's an entrepreneur, or even anybody who's been in the industry a really long time, there's about 5 different things you need to have in place before you even start marketing yourself. And number one is you have to have your bio, which we all know is your entrepreneur's resume. Try to update that every 6 months to a year.
Mhm.
add new things to it, take away old things. You need to have an updated headshot, at least 6 months to a year, within the making. It's got to look like you. Um, the third most important thing you need to have are your topic, summary, and 3 to 5 takeaways, what you're going to talk about. So, your topic, the summary needs to be just a few sentences about what that topic is about. What are you going to talk about? 3 to 5 takeaways. What will an audience member learn by attending your keynote or your workshop? So, those are vital. You have got to
Mhm.
have those. And I would say, lastly, you need to have a good follow up system because there's a lot of follow up in the speaking industry. And that's really where I see speakers drop the ball.
So some people say to me, I do a lot of business coaching, and some people say to me, well, I want to make money at this. And there's
Mhm.
so many speaking opportunities that you don't make any money at. What are your thoughts on what you tell your people?
That's a great question. And two things I would say: the speaking industry is nothing like what it used to be, where people could command high fees and get them. And, it used to be there were more speakers than there were. Or more paid engagements than there were speakers. Now it's the exact opposite. There are more speakers than there are paid opportunities. But what I share with everyone, whether they work with me or not, is you need to be passionate about your message. You need to, your passion has got to shine through. And I see a lot of speakers who will do this. They get into speaking, they're passionate about their message, but then they make it all about the money. And as soon as you do that, as soon as you make that mental switch, it shows in your presentation and it gets harder to get booked. So always be
Mm.
passionate about your message and the money will come.
Yeah, I tell them that all the time because they're constantly worried about money. I don't make enough money. People don't pay me what I'm worth. It's really difficult because I believe that if you're standing on stage and you give a passionate message that people can take away and do today,
Mhm.
then they will get booked in the future, or those people in the audience will resonate with their message and call them and want to work with them. And that's where the money comes in.
Well, that's also where having a really good follow up system comes into play. And you
Hmm.
need to have it as something that you can do as you're exiting stage. And you can't really do it with a keynote, but you can with a workshop or breakout session. And you also need to have one, just a follow up system in general, because a lot of times, and you know this too, these big events are planned at least a year in advance. They
Hmm.
choose speaker selection happens 6 months to a year prior to the event. So you're building up future income for yourself, but you also have to do the follow up. You have to, I just can't stress that enough. Even if you have a pen and paper and you're following up that way, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It has to be something that you will use. And if you are in front of an audience, a really good tip to use is that when you are what I do for, because I don't really do any keynotes. I'm more of a workshop breakout session girl, private training type person. But for example, when I'm at a big show and I have 40, 50 minutes, one of the first things I do after I get introduced is I tell everybody, listen, we're only going to be here for 40, 50 minutes today. And I know if you came here today because you have a specific problem at your organization, I will be here afterwards. You can come up to me afterwards and ask any questions. I'm happy to help. And if you have to go to another segment right after this one and you don't have time to talk, come up here, take one of my cards, leave your business card here with me, just drop it in the pile, and I'll contact you after the show's over. And you will be amazed how much business you will get from that. And it's not in violation of any contract that you sign with any large show. If
Hmm.
anything, you get better marks for, whenever they're filling out their forms of how you did as a speaker, that you really seem to care, that you're helpful. So it helps everyone all the way around.
Well, that's a really great idea. And now, what do you think about this idea? Sometimes I see speakers who say, oh, yeah, just type this into your text and type this word, and you'll get an instant, whatever the PDF is or whatever that. Have you seen people do that?
I have sometimes that is, depending, you have to look at your agreement that you sign, especially if it's with a larger show. When you are getting paid, even if it's only $500 or $700 to do a keynote or a workshop or whatever, they're very adamant They want none of that in your PowerPoint. They do not want you doing any type of selling. So you
Hmm.
have to be very careful of how you approach it. So I would recommend if they allow you to do it, great. If not, don't risk it, because what will happen is you will not get asked back for the following year, and you could prevent yourself from getting really big business. But if you do a good job with your presentation, you are going to have people come up to you afterwards and ask you, hey, do you do private training? I have something going on at my company. Can we talk? I always have that. But you also have to set the tone, be friendly, be easygoing, be easy to approach. Another thing I see a lot of speakers do that hurts them with getting really big business is that they're unapproachable. They'll
Mm.
come in just a few minutes before they have to take the stage, and they come in, they speak, and they're like, "Thanks for coming," and they leave. Or they'll
Yeah,
stick
I've seen
around, but
that.
their body language is, "Don't come near me." Another thing people can do to be more approachable, I do this too. I show up, usually 10 minutes or 15 minutes prior to taking stage. I walk around the audience, just as people are filing into the room. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Carrie Heaps. I'm the speaker today. I'm just curious, why'd you sign up for the class today? Is there something specific you want to learn? I do this for two reasons. Number one, if there's something specific someone wants to learn that I don't have in my PowerPoint or that I wasn't going to cover, I make a note of it and I make sure I cover it. And the second reason is it shows that I'm approachable.
Hmm.
I want them to feel comfortable with me, because if they're not, they wouldn't hire me anyway,
Right.
to come in and help their company. I just, the wastewater treatment show, which this is my third year in a row this year, I only get paid $700 to do this workshop. So basically that covers my flight and one night at the hotel. Why do I continue to do it? Because I always get private training gigs from the audience and companies that are paying my regular fee. So it is well worth my time. But if I'm not there, if I'm not there presenting, there's they're not going to ask me, "Hey, do you do private training?" They're not going to know to do
Yeah.
that. So
So
it
let me
really
ask you, you said wastewater. I know what people are thinking. You said wastewater treatment show. So what would you speak on for the wastewater treatment show?
Well, that thank you for bringing that up, because that's another thing that I see people do. They'll look at a show and think, "Oh, that's not my audience." Okay. Well, the wastewater treatment show, that is the largest show in the wastewater industry. 30,000 businesses go to that show. Now, less than
Mm.
300 are women. Every single show that's out there, tech shows, environment, energy and gas, oil and gas, they all have a certain amount of speaking spots that have to be filled for soft skills, for things that are not, continuing education, for that specific industry. So they have to fill those. They usually have a wellness track. They'll have something for personal development, something for communication. So there's always going to be a need. And it surprises me how many times people will say, "Oh, I'm not going to apply to that. That's not my audience." But they need you. That's a topic opening. You can still get business from that industry. So never overlook, never think, "Oh, I wouldn't fit in there." You
So
would be
if they aren't addressing it
Mhm.
on the layout that they create that you read, how do you approach that then?
Well, they typically will lay it out. They'll say, "These are our open tracks. This is what we're looking for." Okay. So if you look at those, and let's just say you're a speaker on team building. Okay. So, and you apply to speak at, I don't know, a tech show, a big tech show, and you're filling out the call for speaker. You can put it under there. If they're looking for soft skills, that is, team building would fall under that. It would fall under management. It would fall under operations. So a lot of times they make it very general, but still just go ahead and apply. They're going to ask for the same thing, the topic summary, 3 to 5 takeaways. And it takes just a few seconds to apply if you do it correctly. Don't spend a
Hmm.
lot of time on it. It's another thing I see people do. They'll read through all of that. They'll read through the website. They'll spend 2 hours and then decide, "Oh, no, I'm not going to apply." So you just wasted 2 hours.
Right,
So don't do
exactly.
that. Never assume. Never assume.
So I'm asking for the audience purposes. Is it always just things you can fill out, or do you send one sheet? And, I know about the speaker one sheet. They're thinking, should that be what I send? What do I send?
Yeah. So the call for speakers, which is normally, and a great way to find those is just do a Google search for call for speakers. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And tons of things will pop up. It's usually a form that you have to fill out. Okay. So I recommend having all of your information in one area, like Microsoft Word, where you can copy and paste, make it easy on yourself, and then customize afterwards. Okay. Then click submit, move on to the next one. So if you are wanting those are usually the bigger shows for associations and trade organizations. If you are wanting to do private training for private companies, for maybe smaller, like for example, SHRM or American Dental Association for their local or state chapter, then yes, you're going to have to approach it differently. You want to reach out to them. My recommendation is to always call and find out, who does speaker selection? Do you have a budget? I'd love to send in, this is what I think would be helpful. Do you have a need for this? Who can I send my information to? Um, Three things that I would tell you: speaker one sheets, I will tell you, meeting planner feedback, they're not crazy about them.
Mm-hmm.
Mainly because there's way too much artistic work. It sucks up when they print it out, it takes up all of their printer ink. The font
Yeah.
is so small, you need a magnifying glass to read it. They don't like it. They'd rather just have it in an email, bullet points. Here's my topic, here's my summary, here's what people will learn. Make it easy. There's no
Awesome.
reason to complicate it. So that's a big misconception. If you have a speaker one sheet, great. You can always send that along, but I recommend putting it in email where it can be printed out and read without eye strain. Okay. The other thing that I tell people is writing a book. If you do not have one, I highly recommend that you write a book, even if it's a mini book. If you're an expert in a certain industry, Charlene, then you really need to have a book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I agree.
95% of the time, that is what we get asked, from meeting planners. Is this person a published author? If so, where can I find their book? Can they send me a copy? Because it shows them that you can not only, take your message and portray it orally, but also in written word. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So a book is that's 95% of the time. The biggest misconception in the industry is video.
Mm.
Everyone thinks, oh, I need to have a speaker reel. I need to have video of me speaking. We get asked for that maybe 50% of the time, maybe. And it's never a deal breaker. To give you an idea, I have been speaking a long time. I just recently got a video of me speaking because somebody in the audience videotaped me, which was fine. I didn't have an issue with it. And they sent me a copy, and I was appreciative of it. But I've had no video of me speaking because it's always in my contract. I'm not allowed to record. So
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what's the point?
it will not hinder you.
Yes.
And I see people who will spend $1,000, $2,000 on getting a speaker reel. And again, feedback we get from meeting planners, they hate the speaker reel. All it is just an infomercial. They know you're only putting in the best spots. I had
Mm-hmm.
one meeting planner tell me, she said, if they want to do a video, fine. 1 minute or less, tell me something that's going to make me want to get up and change my life. Get up out of
Got
my
it.
chair and change my life. A minute or less. I could care less about the lighting. I could care less about the audio. As long as I can see them and hear them, it's their message that counts
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
that's a huge misconception. And I've had people tell me, "Oh, I can't move forward with this because I don't have video." I'm like, "You don't need it. Just do a quick video recording yourself saying, here's something I tell my clients, make it a minute or less and that'll be fine."
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's not a deal breaker.
Okay, so that is really good information because I know people, I have a speaker reel myself, but I got it during my book launch because I had control of what was going on. I could video however I wanted to. And then they
Mhm.
put it all together. And I'm like, okay, I have it
Yeah.
there on my page. Now, tell me something else. How often? Oh, let me go back to the book. When I was working with a coach way back when,
Mhm.
they said, or he said, that I had to have plunk factor in my book. Now, you just said they could even have a small little book. You know what I mean by plunk
Yeah.
factor, that when it drops on the table, you have to be able to hear
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Kaplunk. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what do you think?
I I don't agree. Again, I have what I have on my docket. I have three mini books: creating your own media, creating your own podcast, and creating your own publishing. or, to be your own publisher. So all three of my books are under 60 pages, I think. Now, when I spoke 2 years ago at the HRPA conference in Canada, which is Canada's version of SHRM, it was their national event for HR executives. They had a bookstore, and I didn't know it, but they bought copies of my book, even though I spoke on body language. And I thought, why did you buy copies of my book? These are HR people. They're not going to want to read this stuff. It's publicity. And they said, well, you have a book signing at, after you speak, be in the bookstore at 11 o'clock.
Mm.
And they basically sold all of my books except two or three. I signed all of them, and we took pictures and everything, and I did have people coming up and buying my book. So I was like, okay, this is great. But logistically, it doesn't have to be anything big. I think as long as you have something, my books are on media, and I do have a topic on media, but I don't have one on body language, and I should. And that is something that I'm going to be working on this year.
Hmm.
So, just have a book on your topic, because that way too, it's a great introduction to say to a meeting planner, they may not have a need right now. Okay, fine. Is it okay if I maybe follow up with you later in the year? In the meantime, can I send you a copy of my book? They love getting your books. They love to get interviews. They will read your book. They'll watch your podcast or watch your show, or listen to the podcast episode that you were on. They will do that because it gives them an idea of your message and what you talk about, and it can give them ideas about how they can use you in the future. So I would say, just even as a marketing tool. But you'll find when you start filling out those call for speaker forms, 9 times out of 10 they're going to ask you, have you written a book? Okay, show us a link to your Amazon page or to your wherever they could buy a copy.
Hmm.
What's your book about? And they're going to ask. And a lot of times they'll even say, hey, if you want to bring your book and sell it in the back of the room. I've had people who have said that to me. But again, if I'm talking on body language, I don't have a book on that, so it doesn't make any sense to me to do
Right.
that.
Yes.
So, but it's very important. We get asked for that a lot.
Mm.
A lot.
Now, here's another question. Once you've applied, how often should you follow up?
Well, with the call for speakers or RFP forums, you never want to follow up. You click
Okay.
submit, forget about it, move on to the next one. Now, if they reach out to you in a month or two and say, hey, you applied to speak at our event, we'd love to have a conversation with you, then that's when you want to put them on what I would call a follow-up sheet. Okay, have a conversation with them, the date you had it, what you discussed, what they're looking for, how they need you to customize your presentation if they move forward with you. At that point, you want to, because you have someone specific to follow up. A lot of
Hmm.
times the call for speaker forums, RFPs, they have it open. The process is usually like this. They'll have it open for a month or two, and they get all of these call for speaker submissions for all of their topics that they need. They might have 1,000 people that applied. They close that open call. It goes before a panel. The panel gets all of the different submissions divided up, and they go through and they pick a certain amount that they like, that they want to move forward with. They reach out, they do calls, and then they narrow it down from there. So it's never just one person with a call for speaker form. Now, if you reach out to, let's say, you want to speak to colleges, just college students, and you talk to the director of campus activities, and they're like, yeah, we'll need someone later in the month or later in the year. Why don't you send me your information? Okay, great. You as a speaker, it's always your job to do the follow-up. So you want to set up the next step. What I would do is say, how about if I do this, Charlene? I'm going to email you some information on my topic, how it can benefit the students before they graduate. And why don't I just, give you a call like on Monday, just to make sure you got the email, see if you have any questions, and we'll go from there. So get permission and set up that next step. Now, if I called you on Monday and I got your voicemail, I would leave a message and say, hey, I just told you I'd follow up. I wanted to make sure you got my email. Did you have any questions? Give me a call back. And I'm going to notate that in my follow-up log. Now, more than likely, I won't hear back from you. So what will happen is in another week or two, I'm going to call you again. But I'm not going to leave a message. Rule of thumb, leave one message. After that, just call until you get them on the phone. And you'll see a pattern that sometimes it takes anywhere from 10 to 13 phone calls before you get them on the phone again. And it's not that they're ignoring you. It's not that they're ignoring you. They're busy with their job and life happens. So that's part of our job as speakers, is to follow up.
Now, that's great information, Carrie. Thank you so much. I mean, you've given us so many fabulous, fabulous tips. what I'd like to know is how people can get a hold of you, because I really want them to reach out to you if they are interested in becoming a speaker. Or there's another issue now, we have kind of a different situation with speaking. So what's happening now with, are we going virtual for speaking events, or what's happening? I kind of asked you two questions at once.
Okay. Well, I'll cover that one first. So, as far as like what's happening now with COVID-19, yes, there are some events that have gone virtual. I recommend to all speakers to have a presentation that they can do in person and then customize it where it can be done online through Zoom or Skype, whatever they'd like to use. So, you want to have two different ways to go. There's going to be some organizations that have gone virtual that will see the benefit of it. And they're like, look, we're not going to go back and meet in person anymore.
It's
But for
much
the
less
most part,
expensive.
it is. But I will tell
Yes.
you, even with us, with the call for speakers, we've still been sending the regular amount to people, even through all of this. People are, and companies, associations, they're still planning events. And with the event industry, like I said, everything that we're getting in right now is for the end of the year or early 2021.
Mhm.
So people are still planning events. Those are still going to come to fruition. But there will be a certain amount of them that will go virtual and will probably stay virtual. So it's not going to affect the event industry where everybody, all the hotels are going to shut down. I've had people say that to me, and I'm like, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
People are still planning events. So still continue to work. Whatever happens with the economy, there's always going to be things coming up. It could be a snowstorm, it could be an economic crash, it could be something else where you may not be able to go to that event, or something happens where the attendance is lowered. There's always going to be something coming up. Your job is to show up and speak regardless of what's happening. So just make sure you're continuing to work, you're continuing to apply, because those people who did not work the past 2 months with doing applications or anything, they're going to feel it at the end of the year and the early part of 2021. They're going to feel it on their calendar.
Yes,
So,
I'm sure they
but
are.
yeah, if people do want to get in touch with me, bookspeakrepeat.com /speaker. If we have a form people can fill out, we do a free consultation. Even if they can't work with me, I just try to give them ideas and tips and try to help where I can.
Wonderful. You've been absolutely wonderful. And I'm so glad that you're here with us this morning. You gave us so many great tips, right, everybody? Didn't she do a fabulous job?
Well,
So
thank
go
you.
ahead, bookspeakrepeat.com /speaker is a great way to reach Carrie. And Carrie, I just want to say thank you for being with me. Our time seems to fly by, doesn't it?
It does. It does. Time flies when you're having fun.
Yeah,
Right?
that's right. So everyone, I just want to say thank you for being with us today. It's been really wonderful. I love, love, love the guests that have been coming on the Ask the Expert, that's Friday's Ask the Expert, coming up this Friday on the Heart-Based Business Show. These are the real heavy hitters out in the industry making a difference in the world. They are the leaders who are showing others how to step forward and shift their mind and the way that they do business for the betterment of everyone else. Because if we can lift whole communities and stop thinking just about ourselves, it makes all the difference in the world. So again, I say thank you. We're on every Wednesday on the Heart-Based Business Show at 9:30 Pacific time. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. Oh, and don't forget to like the show and click the bell so you know when we're going to be here next.